Hey guys, Caleb here with DSLR Video Shooter, and today we're doing a comparison of 9 different camera monitors under $200 each. Yeah, I don't think we have time for an intro. Quick disclaimer time. I purchased each one of these monitors, so no one sent these to me, and as with every video, you're going to get my thoughts on each one, honestly. You'll find the links to each of them in the description, and those are affiliated links, so if you purchase through those, I'll get a small commission at no extra cost to you. My criteria was that each of these monitors had to have at least HDMI as a connectivity option, and they needed to at least display some kind of 4K signal for all these new 4K cameras available. And every one of these monitors I tested, and they do work with the GH5 and the A6500. Since we have 9 monitors to get through, I'm not going to be reading off every single little spec and assist feature option, so keep an eye out for those on the screen when I talk about each monitor, and you can pause and read those if you need to. So let's jump in with our first monitor, which is the Viltrox DC-50. This is the cheapest monitor of the bunch, and we'll work our way up in cost. This is a 5-inch monitor, one of the 2 5-inch monitors in this roundup, and it runs around $105 on Amazon. If you pick one of these up, you will find the monitor itself in the box along with a hood and a mount and an HDMI cable. Resolution isn't awesome on this monitor, but it has a lot of great features. For batteries, we have FM500H batteries, so very similar to Sony MPF, but they're not the same, which is kind of a bummer. But at the same time, they're very small, lots of output, pretty great for a small monitor like this, and I actually have grown to enjoy this setup with that tiny little battery. First, let's do a quick latency test. I'm going to move the camera. You should be able to see the screen of the monitor and the camera, and you'll be able to see if they're in sync. Slight delay on this one. When it comes to the menu system, you can access it via the dial on the side. It's a little difficult to navigate, and there's really not that much in the menus. The hood also works great. I'll go ahead and close it up here. Nice little compact setup, and then it pops open. Works great. Definitely going to be fine for outdoors as long as you don't have direct sunlight hitting the display. For final thoughts, this monitor is all about the size and the weight. I love that tiny 5-inch form factor. It's going to be great for checking your composition. Color is all right. It's not amazing, but it's decent. Checking focus using the monitor is totally legit, so you can easily do that. It is a little kind of grainy, and it's a lower quality panel, but for the money, I think you're going to be just fine with this. Viewing angles aren't perfect, but again, $100 guys, that's pretty good. And our next monitor is the Viltrox DC-70 Mark II. This one comes in at $110. It is a 7-inch monitor with a resolution of 1024 by 600, and there's no marked brightness on the spec sheet. Let's go ahead and do a latency test. You can see it's pretty slow, which is unfortunate. But this one, really the story here is it's a large, cheap monitor with a lot of assist features actually. So in the box it comes with the monitor itself, the mount that's the same as the first one we looked at, and a similar hood, but obviously for the 7-inch. And this one also has that same flip out mechanism, which works really well. And then for power, we have a DC input jack and a battery plate, except now we're back to the proper Sony MPF battery, so that's great news. Another physical difference is there are 1/4-20s on all sides of the monitor, letting you mount it in several different ways. The problem with this monitor is the resolution and the size. It isn't a great image. The viewing angle is pretty poor. Another small problem is the menu system is still difficult to navigate because of that little one-click dial. Little difficult to get in there and make changes, and there's no function button to quickly access some of that stuff. For this monitor, you're going to do fine for composition. Color is all right. Sharpness is good enough. But it's a big monitor with a lot of assist features, and if you need something larger, this will do the trick. Our next monitor is the NEEWER 759. This is made by several different manufacturers, so you might find a couple different brands with the same model number. It is a 7-inch monitor, costs $139, has a resolution of 1280 by 800, which is awesome. It is an IPS panel. For brightness, we're looking at 400 nit, so about close to what an iPhone would give you. If you pick one of these up, you're going to get a ball head mount and a hood, which is a bracket that snaps onto the monitor, and then a holy balls. And we'll get to that part of this in a second. and then a Velcro hood that attaches to it. What you just heard was the speakers on this monitor, and what's really annoying is there's no way to turn them down or off at all. So what I've done is I stuck a really cheap little headphone splitter into the headphone jack, and what you heard was me accidentally knocking it out. So you need to plug something into that 3.5mm jack to keep it from doing what you just heard. In the menu system, which can be accessed via the buttons across the face of the monitor, and it's much easier to access than the first two monitors we looked at, you can assign up to 4 different buttons and quickly access those settings without going into the menu system, which is great. And that brings us to the image, which is awesome on this monitor. It is kind of a glossy screen, but really, really rich, great panel on this. Sharpness is dynamite, so you're gonna be easily able to focus even with soft lenses without any problems. The main problem with this one is latency, like a lot of the other ones, and this one's kind of bad, so I'm going to go ahead and do this job. We'll do this test here, and you can see by looking at the two screens that things are pretty out of sync, which is too bad. But if you don't have a lot of camera movement, really complex camera moves, and you're using this monitor, then you should be fine. Next up, we have the Viltrox DC-70 HD, and this monitor comes in at $156 roughly. It is a 7-inch monitor, and its resolution is 1920 by 1200, so hence the HD in the name. With this and some of the upcoming monitors, we're getting into that price range where we're gonna get some awesome assist features and some great quality panels. So this one has a ton packed into it. It is a fully metal monitor. I'll spin it around here. It is beast mode, this thing. This is the only monitor that is made of metal, and it shows. It's really, really well built. It's pretty impressive considering how much it costs. Like those other Viltrox monitors, it's kind of difficult to navigate the menu system with this single little control here, but it is possible. Just don't expect to be able to quickly turn on and off certain assist features. Now let's do a latency test. I'm going to go ahead and quickly pan back and forth. You're going to see that again we have some issues there. The color and image quality and resolution on this monitor is amazing. So it's one of my favorites when it comes to that. It is a glossy screen, so you'll need to be aware of that. But it does have this great little hood setup, so you should be good there. So this thing pretty much covers all the bases when it comes to what a monitor helps with. So you can easily check exposure, sharpness, composition, and even color is very accurate. Looking between my GH5 screen and this monitor looks very, very similar. For accessories, you get a mount for the monitor and a hood, which can be detached. I'll go ahead and close it up here to show you how neat and tidy it closes up and opens up also very easily, albeit loud. Our next monitor is the second of the two 5-inch monitors, and it is the MustHD 5-inch M501H. This monitor is $162, has a resolution of 800 by 480 and a brightness of 350 nits, so it's not as high resolution or as bright as some of the other monitors, and it is a little more expensive, but there's some great features about this. And as I spin it around here, you can see it's got a nice hood, which comes with it, obviously, a mount, a power plate, a power cable, and a remote. Spinning it around to the front for the buttons, we have tons of them here, and a really slick dial that we'll talk about here in a second. So this one, the panel is not as good as some of the other ones just because of the resolution and the brightness. But you got to keep in mind with smaller monitors, you don't need as much resolution to get the most out of them. The panel is plenty sharp enough to check your focus, and you'll notice with the latency test here that this is one of the lower latency monitors in the setup. There's a little bit of a delay, but it's not terrible. The hood closes very nicely, locks like so, can be opened back up, and my mount starts to fail here. But this is a great little monitor, and it's a little more girthy than the first 5-inch we looked at. But it's just a solid little unit if you only have $160 to spend. Let's start with talking about this dial on the side. If you hit the menu button, you can use the dial to quickly navigate through the menu system and select things and make changes there. Also, if you're not in the menu, by default, the knob will be your volume knob. So you can plug in your headphones and control the volume that way, which is really slick. And if you press in on the button, it now controls the brightness. So if things aren't bright enough or too bright, you can go ahead and fine tune that. So final thoughts on this monitor. The panel itself, the quality isn't amazing. You can still check your exposure and your colors easily and your focus to an extent. but the viewing angles aren't that good, and when there's big gradients, you'll see some banding. But this monitor, the beauty with it is the size and the button layout and being able to access everything very easily, and some awesome assist features. Our next monitor is the Aputure VS-1. This monitor costs $180 roughly, is a 7-inch monitor with a resolution of 800 by 480. It is an IPS panel, which is great, and has a brightness of 400 nits. In the box, you'll get the monitor itself, a mount, an HDMI cable, a hood, which doesn't work very well. It kind of wraps around it with Velcro, and I found that it slipped off a lot. And finally, it came with a D-tap cable. On the face here, we have a menu button with a 4-way button switch around it. Works really well, and those same 4 buttons can be used to program various assist features. Speaking of assist features, this monitor doesn't have many of them, so you're not going to get a lot of focus and exposure options here. So I'll go ahead and do a latency test. You can see it's not awesome, but it seems to be a theme amongst a lot of these monitors. These lower end monitors seem to kind of struggle with that latency. Something else I really liked with this monitor is the display function at the bottom. Since it's slightly taller for 16:9, you have that black strip at the bottom, and Aputure has taken advantage of that by putting in a battery life indicator, which is really handy, showing us what kind of input we're getting, and then a couple guides saying, hey, if you hit these buttons, this is what they'll do. So nice monitor. It's a great all-arounder if you just want a good monitor and don't need false color, focus peaking, things like that. Our next monitor is the Feelworld FW760. This is a 7-inch monitor with a whopping 1920 by 1200 IPS panel, so really great resolution here. It has a 450 nit rating for brightness, and this one is designed to accept 4K signals. So I'll talk about this in a future video, but some monitors are designed to accept that signal, others aren't, and there's downscaling involved and all that kind of thing. But this one is designed for a good connection with 4K. If you pick one of these up, you'll get the monitor itself, a bracket that mounts the Velcro hood, which works great, and a mount and an HDMI cable. And then we can set up the 4 function buttons, which can be controlled with the 4 function buttons on the front of the monitor. Now let's do a latency test, and you're gonna notice it's pretty bad. I don't know what's going on with all these lower end monitors. I've tested them with 1080 and 4K, so I don't know what's up with that, but it's not good. Using this monitor for focusing and for color and checking your exposure is a dream. It is a beautiful, stunning panel, and for around $190, it's hard to beat this. So amazing panel if you're looking for something that you don't need to have perfect zero latency operating. Next up, we have the Bestview S7. This is another 4K optimized monitor, and this one's got a lot going on. So for the resolution and the specs, it's pretty much identical to the last one we looked at. So it's a little more expensive at $198. The only differences are that we have the ports along the bottom instead of on the back or the side. And for the buttons, they're a little different. What I love about this monitor is we have all those assist features of the last one, but we have 7 custom function buttons. So if you're going to be using all the exposure, focus, audio tools that these monitors have, this one is great because you can have 7 programmed buttons all set up, ready to go. In the box, you'll get the monitor itself, a really nice hood design, which is Velcro, and a bracket system, 2 different battery plates, one of which is a Sony MPF standard battery, and a mount and a power adapter if you want to plug it into the wall. Physically, this is a great monitor, feels really high quality, has quarter 20s all the way around it, and a physical on-off switch, which I always like to see and prefer over the digital ones. It's just a great monitor. The only Achilles heel is that latency issue. So if you're going to be doing lots of complex timed camera moves and you're going to be using this monitor to view your footage and set it all up, you might have some issues there. But for stuff like YouTube or even some casual panning, once you get things going, it's pretty easy to keep track of things. It's just when you're doing a lot of movement and have to react quickly, that's where you run into some problems. But you really can't beat the 7 function buttons, all the functions on here, and the quality of this display is amazing. Our last monitor is the Feelworld F7. It is a 7-inch monitor, costs $199, and all the rest of the specs and assist features are identical to the Bestview S7, the monitor we just looked at, with exception to the external design, which is why I'm not going to recommend this over the previous monitor we just talked about, the Bestview S7. The connections are underneath the monitor, which interfere with mounting the monitor to your camera. There's only 3 function buttons. The monitor won't turn off completely, and navigation in the menu system is more difficult, so I'd recommend skipping this one and going with the Bestview S7 as a better option. So at the end of the day, our first monitor, the DC-50, is the cheapest on-camera monitor with a battery option. The DC-70II is the cheapest 7-inch monitor with assist features. The NEEWER 769 is the highest quality monitor for the least amount of money. So if you want something with the most bang for buck, that's probably your best option. The Viltrox DC-70 HD is the cheapest 1080p monitor for the money with the highest build quality out of all of these options. The MustHD 501H is the smallest, best monitor option for assist features. The Aputure VS-1 is the monitor with the most connectivity options, and the Feelworld 760 and Bestview S7 are the best $200 monitors, with the Bestview S7 being the top dog in this comparison, with the most features and best design. If you want to learn more about each of these monitors, check the link in the description. Otherwise, you can watch fresh content here at DSLR Video Shooter every single week. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.